plan for today is that we're going to spend the first half of the shiur going through the texts of the Rashi and Mitzudas David of Shiras Devorah, and the second half we're going to try to have the Hasidic interpretation of Shiras Devorah. Now, for the purpose of the text, and if you use now the text of the Prakim Shoftim, Perek Dalet, and Perek Hey, and even if anybody's on Zoom and doesn't have if you have a text of the Tanakh Shoftim with Rashi and Mitzudas, you definitely have this. So that's good enough. I'm going to try to go through. You have the sheets in the back. Now, I'm going to go through the Rashi and Mitzudas David that gives us a deeper understanding of the text, starting from the beginning of Perek Dalet, chapter 4. Now, the first pasuk in Perek Dalet begins, Vayosifu b'nei Yisrael lasos hara b'nei Hashem, and the Jewish people continue doing bad in the eyes of Hashem. Ve'ehud meis, and Ehud had died. Just to mention that Ehud had been a shofet prior to Devorah. After Yehoshua, the first shofet was Osniel ben Knaz, who was shofet for 40 years, and then Ehud ben Geda, shofet for 80 years, even though the 40 and the 80 include the years of the Shibud as well, the years of the enslavement. In any case, Mitzudas David, if on the Ehud Meis, he says, the problems began the day that Ehud died. The Af bimei Shamgar osu hora, even in the days of Shamgar, they did bad. And therefore, his salvation was not as great. In the last pasuk of the last parak we have, in pasuk Lamed Aleph of Parak Gimel, it said, "Ve'acharav hoya Shamgar ben Anos." After Ehud ben Geda was Shamgar ben Anos. Vayaches haplishtim b'sheish me'asish b'malmad bakar. He struck the plishtim with a malmad bakar, 600 people. Vayosha gamhu es Yisrael, and he also saved the Jewish people. So he also helped. However, there were still a lot of problems because the Jewish people also did bad in the eyes of Hashem. Therefore, there were still problems in the days of Shamgar. And just to mention, it's mentioned in Midrashim that the difference between Shamgar had less influence on the rest of the Jewish people than most of the Shoftim, which is why his salvation was very limited. Of all the Shoftim that we had, the one that had the greatest impact was definitely Devorah. As we mentioned yesterday, that in the days of Devorah, all sins were forgiven. We mentioned the various, all the Midrashim, just to mention the one that fascinates me most is that Devorah on Tzidkas Pierozoin, that Devorah made sure that every isolated town and city should have a shul, should have a teacher, should have a chazan, should have davening. In other words, so Devorah seemed to have had a similar philosophy to that which the Rebbe has, to make sure she put special emphasis that the Yiddishkeit should flourish in all the isolated places. And she also put, as we'll see in the Maimarim, that we will see that she put a tremendous emphasis that the Yiddishkeit should be at the highest level, not to compromise anything in Torah. In any case, going now to Pasuk Beis, Vayimkrem Hashem biyad Yavin melech Canaan. Hashem sold the Jewish people in the hand of Yavin, the hand of the king of Canaan, Hashem Malach b'Chatzor, who had been king in Chatzor, and Sar Tzvai Sisra, and his general was Sisra, V'hu Yoshev b'Charoshas Hagoyim. And now, Yavin once upon a time lived in Chatzor, and now he lived in Charoshas Hagoyim. Now, Mitzudas David deals, why did Yavin, if originally he was the king in Chatzor, why did he move to Charoshas Hagoyim? So Mitzudas David Bey says that Yehoshua conquers Chatzor. And when Yehoshua conquered Chatzor, Yavin fled from Chatzor, and he got away, and he became king in Charoshas Hagoyim. It's called Charoshas Hagoyim. Mitzudas David says, because it's a place where there's a lot of people who deal with Cheresh ve'uman, the idea of, I'm not sure exactly what Cheresh ve'uman, different crafts. I cannot tell you exactly what it is. Okay. Now, as we go on to Gimel, where it says, Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem, cried out to Hashem, Ki sham meyos rechev barzelloi. Sisra had 900 metal chariots, We mentioned yesterday about the Midah Keneged Midah, that because Sisera believed in his metal chariots, therefore the chariots is what got him in trouble. And he oppressed the Jewish people very harshly for 20 years. And we have the Rashi Gimel. Rashi Gimel says, he would curse, he would abuse, he would verbally abuse the Jewish people. And Rashi brings a pasuk to prove it. In any case, pasuk Dalid, Devorah Isha Neviah. Devorah was a prophetess, Eishes Lapidos, the wife of Lapidos, or however we translate Eishes Lapidos. Rashi and Metzudas David, actually, even though Midrashim say the wife of Lapidos, according to Rashi and Metzudas David, it has nothing to do with her husband being Lapidos. He shayfed us Yisrael ba'esahi. She was judging the Jewish people at that time. And if you look in Rashi, Eishes Lapidos, Rashi says the main thing in Eishes Lapidos, Shahoisa Oisa Psilois Lamikdosh, that she made wicks for the Beis Hamikdosh, as opposed to Metzudas David says Eishes Lapidos. She was Lapidos is lightning, which is Ratzaloimar Eishes Chayil, a capable woman, very pushed to do things. Zriza b'maseha, she would rush to do things. If Devorah had something which she saw needed to get done, she would rush to do it. Kilapid eish, just like lightning. The speed of light is very quick. So Devorah's rate of moving and doing things, Devorah, the amount of time with which she transformed Bnei Yisrael was in record speed. And you see the war, that the whole war of Devorah was achieved in one day. And now it doesn't mean she worked at lightning speed. I don't know exactly what's the speed of light, but it's very fast. I don't know, it's at 180,000 miles. I can tell you exactly what it is, but it's very fast. Did Devorah work at that speed? Definitely not. But it's only a melitza kasher yoimru habriyos. As people say that she's at the speed of lightning, she didn't actually go the speed of lightning. He shayfed him. So this David says, "Bavur shahisa neviah," because she was a prophetess and she was zriza b'maasel. She was very quick to act, which we discussed yesterday, the medrash that brings that in the days of Devorah, there was also Pinchas. And Pinchas was a greater Talmid Chacham and a great tzaddik and a person who was perfect in everything he did. And yet, why did Dafka Devorah help the Jewish people and not Pinchas? Pinchas Pinchas taught Torah only to those who wanted to learn Torah. People who weren't motivated, Pinchas didn't deal with them. Pinchas was very rigid, as opposed to Devorah. Devorah went out to try to get to every single Jew, every single community, focusing on the positive in every person, and therefore, one second. So he says over here, actually, the Metzudas David, he shayfta bavur shoysa neviah was riza b'maseh because she was so quick to act. That's why she judged the Jewish people. She was obviously very popular amongst people because she would judge and focus on the positive in every single person. And we're going on now. We'll go now to, let me just see, the next pasuk that has something added, yes. If you look at pasuk Hey, basically speaks about her living, her under the, that she's Yesheves Tachas Taimer. She had her office under a date palm. So this David says, why under a date palm? She shouldn't have a problem of yichud with the men. There were many men coming to the Devorah for judgment. That's why she set her residence, her office, under a date palm. There'd be no issue of yichud for men who came to deal with her on whatever issues there were. And we're up to, it says now, Vatishlach Vatikra leBarak ben Avinoam, and she sent and she called for Barak ben Avinoam Mikedesh Naphtali. She called for Barak ben Avinoam. We mentioned yesterday in the Medrash about the amazing shidduch between, according to the Medrashim that say that Barak and Devorah were married to each other. So the Medrash mentions that it's very amazing the shidduch between Barak and Devorah when they lived so far from each other. But why did they have this shidduch? It mentions in the medrash that we had, because Devorah was so dedicated to help Yidden, and Barak ben Avinoam was so dedicated in serving the Chachamim in the days of Yeshua and after the days of Yeshua. So because of their dedication, Hashem made this shidduch between them, even though they were so far from each other. And she says to him, Halitziva Hashem Elikei Yisrael, Hashem the God of Israel has commanded, Leichu mashachta b'har tovar, you should draw people, convince people to go to Har Tovar, where that's where the battle will take place. Take 10,000 people from Naphtali and from Zevulun. Now, we mentioned yesterday in the Medrash why specifically Naphtali, why these two Shvatim would have the merit of winning the war, because Naphtali, we said, excelled in Kibud Av, in honoring his father when he ran all the way from Eretz Yisrael to Mitzrayim to get the document to prove that Yaakov had bought the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, and that's why Yaakov deserved to be buried there and not Esav. And the other.
Sorry. Thanks.
Okay, and why Zevulun specifically? Because Zevulun dedicated themselves to support and fund Shevet Yisachar, who taught Torah to all the Jewish people, and that's why the soldiers were specifically from Zevulun and from Naphtali. For those who are on Zoom, we're doing the Rashi and Mitzudas in the Nach itself, so if you have a Nach at home, you can open Shoftim. We're at Perek Dalet, and we're looking now at Pasuk Vav, the Rashi Vav, Rashi chapter 4, Pasuk 6, Halitziva Hashem, hasn't Hashem commanded, which means this is a command Hashem gave ages ago. So he says, it's already a mitzvah biyad Moshe. It's not a new thing, go gather an army. It's a mitzvah Hashem gave through Moshe Rabbeinu. Ki hacharem tachrimein, to destroy the nations. And you now, Barak, you have an opportunity to do so. So go and do it, and you will fulfill the mitzvah of the Jewish people. And Mitzudas David says, so according to Rashi, it's the general mitzvah, Mitzudas David, and there's no argument between Rashi and Mitzudas David. Says that this was a prophecy that was said to her, even though it's not mentioned, and both are definitely true. It's true that it fulfills the mitzvah, and it's true that it's a prophecy. Leichu mashachta, and Mitzudas David says, you have to convince the Jewish people, because it's not going to be so easy to get Jewish people to come here. Because to fight against Sisera, people were frightened stiff of Sisera. Sisera, we spoke yesterday from the Medrash that he had a voice, that he would give a scream and a wall would fall down. And we said that he had a tremendously powerful person with these 900 chariots. Everybody was frightened of Sisera. So you needed to get very special Yidden who would have the courage to go and fight Sisera, because Mitzudas David says, Ki ma'od pachadu michein le'harav. They were afraid of his great army. Now, you're going to take the army to Har Tovar. How's it going to help you? Doesn't matter. Hashem says, I'll bring Sisera there. You just get your army to Har Tovar. Anyway, Vayomer Elehu Barak in Pasuk Ches, Barak says, if you're going to go with me, I'm going to go. And if you don't go with me, I'm not going to go. And Devorah says in Pasuk Tes, she says, yes, I will go. However, you will not get any glory from this road that you're going, because in the end, there'll be a woman who will kill Sisera, which we all know that Yoel, the wife of Hever HaKeni, is the one who in the end killed Sisera by putting the peg through his head. In any case, Devorah in the end goes with Barak. Mitzudas David, Tess explains that a general of an army usually gets glory in one of two ways, either by showing courage or by killing the most powerful person of the enemy. You won't get any fame by killing the top person, because a woman is going to end up killing Sisera. So therefore, if you don't show courage now, you won't be able to have you won't get a good reputation from this war. Nevertheless, Barak insists that Devorah goes with, and Devorah goes with, as we say in the end of the pasuk, that Batakom Devorah Batelach and Barak. Keisha, she went together with Barak to Kadesh, and in pasuk Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Sisera finds out that Barak came to Har Tovar, and he gathered all his chariots from Charoshes Hagoyim to a place called Nachal Kishain, which is a stream right near the bottom of this mountain. And he's getting ready to attack the Yidden. So the Yidden are on top of the mountain, and Sisera and his 900 chariots are on the bottom of the mountain. And Pasuk Yud Daled, Batomer Devorah, Barak Devorah tells Barak, come, get up. This is the day you're going to win this victory over Sisera. Hashem is over. Hashem Hayotz Hashem lefanecha. And Barak goes down from Har Tovar, and they're going down the mountain, going right, which is quite amazing because we learned Sisera and his army have the top weapons. Barak, we learned he has 10,000 men, but they have no weapons. So 10,000 weak men are going against tens of thousands of top soldiers who have the top weapons, because Hashem said, and you're going to win. The amount of bitachon, if you think of the amount of bitachon that these 10,000 soldiers had, is unbelievable, because it seems to be a total suicide mission. What chance do you have with no weapons and the enemy has all the weapons and you're going right down charging at them and Hashem is going to help? And again, she says you got to do it quick because it's only a one-day deal. Today you can win. If you don't get it today, you won't win. And we have learned in Midrashim the last few days that the entire war took place in one day between sunrise and sunset. Yes, it was a bit squeezed, so she had to hold the sun, and the sun had to wait till they finished because they had to finish the war before sunset. Now, to finish this war off, the first thing that Hashem does is in Pasuk Tesvav, Vayom Hashem es Sisera v'sorecha v'skol machane. Hashem made these big thunders, which got them all mixed up. And in addition, we learned, which that is not mentioned until the next parak, that the stars came and heated up the chariots. The Medrash brings it, Rashi brings it in the next parak. We have it in the next parak just to mention where this is mentioned, because this really fits in over here, because otherwise the whole story doesn't go. How suddenly did they win the war? So if you look in Perek Hey Pasuk Chaf, if you have my copies, it's on page 118, where he says, Min Shamayim nilchamu akechavim, from the heaven, the stars fought, Mimesiloisam, from their orbits, nilchamu im Sisera, they fought with Sisera. And first of all, Rashi, we mentioned over there, said that because there were all these anti-Semitic goyim who came to help Sisera free of charge, as we said in Pasuk, you tested Betzak Kesef Le'lakochu, they went without taking any money. Therefore, Hashem did midah keneged midah, measure for measure, and Hashem sent an army that won't charge you anything. And he sent these stars. These stars didn't send any invoices to Devorah and Barak, and they heated up. And Mitzudas David brings, but Rabbi Seinu Zichronim Lebracha, at the end of Mitzudas David Chaf, that Hakechavim Hirsicho Hasir Yomes, the stars heat up the chariots, therefore, and their helmets, they got helmets, their helmets and their armors got very hot. And therefore, the stars heated up the helmets and their armor, and therefore they went into Nachal Kishain to cool off. And the stream, this Nachal Kishain, suddenly flooded them. Okay, and we're up to yeah. So the last thing is that that everybody got killed by the sword because they were all mixed up. The heat and also they were flooded by the Nachal Kishain, because we said that Nachal Kishain had been a small stream and suddenly it became very big. Anyway, in the end of Pasuk Tesvav, Hashem mixed up the whole camp and everybody was killed by Yedet Sisera Me'al HaMerkava. Sisera got off his chariot. By Yonas Baragov, he was running by foot, hoping that he won't. Mitzudas David says, and why was he running by foot? He wanted to not be identified. He'll be arrested, he'll be caught, and therefore he ran by foot. And in Pasuk Tezayin, Barak is chasing these chariots. And again, it's quite amazing because these chariots, they're all armed and Barak has nothing. And the whole camp of Sisera fell. There was none left, or only one was left. Mitzudas David says, except for Sisera himself, of his whole camp, of all these tens of thousands of officers and armies, nobody was left. And then we have how Sisera runs to the tent of Yoel, because there was peace between Yoel and Chaver Akeni, and she invites him in, and she gives him to eat and drink, and he tells her to stand at the opening of the tent and tell him if anyone is coming. And we have that she offers him milk, and she goes quietly after she gets him to sleep. She gives him milk, and he was exhausted. And she took the peg of the tent and put it through his skull, and he died right away. Actually, there's a Metzudas David right on Vahu Nirdam, which is a Metzudas David in maybe Chaf Aleph. Vahu Nirdam by Yomes. Metzudas David says, why did he die so quickly? He was a bit exhausted, the drinking the milk tires. It has some similarity to alcohol, getting you tired. And if he was also exhausted, because he had been running by foot, and because exhaustion together with the milk, makes me yad. There is actually a Rashi a bit further that says that before she actually did it, she tried to, when he asked for water, Mayim Shal Chalav Nasana. He asked for some water and she gave him milk. And when she saw that he didn't know the difference between milk and water, then she knew he's good and drunk. And because he's good and drunk and good and exhausted, that's why she had the confidence to finish him off in that one go. It should be mentioned later in the Rashi on Mayim Shal Chalav Nasana that he asked for. Where's this Rashi that he asked for? It's Perek Hey Pasuk Chaf Hey, where it says Mayim Shoal Chalav Nasana. He asked for water and she gave milk, and it's actually Metzudas David Perek Hey Chaf Hey Mayim Shoal Ratzalemer Heivina Chachmasa Shal Yoel. You see the wisdom of Yoel. Ki Sisra Bikesh Mayim. Sisra asked for some water. V'hi Nostale Chalav, and she gave him milk. First of all, she gave him milk to get him exhausted. Then Rashi brings Chalav Nasana. So one thing was the milk was to exhaust him. And the other thing, Rashi says, Chalav Nasana, Ladasim Libayolav, to see if he's with it. Sheyavin bein tam mayim latam chalav, see if he knows the difference between water and milk. Kain Tirgam Yonason. Rashi quotes this from the translation of Yonason ben Uziel, that this was a test to see. If he doesn't know the difference between water and milk, then he's really out of it. And therefore, it's quite safe to try to have a go at him. Just to mention, Rashi here quotes the Targum, the translation of Yonason ben Uziel. It's mentioned concerning the translation of Yonason ben Uziel. There is a Gemara in Megillah, Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, that says, first of all, there's a Gemara that says that when Yonason ben Uziel, there were 80 Talmidim of Hillel, the famous Hillel, who argues Hillel and Shammai, and Hillel had 80 students, and Yonason ben Uziel was the top student of Hillel. And it says that when Yonason ben Uziel would study, there was such holiness that if a bird flew on top, it would get burned, whatever significance that may have. But Yonason ben Uziel was the top student of Hillel. It also mentions that when Yonason ben Uziel wrote his translation, there was an earthquake, Arba Meos Parsa, Arba Meos Parsa, which was 1,600 kilometers. By 1,600 kilometers, there was an earthquake, and Eretz Yisrael was shaking. A major earthquake, and a baskil, a heavenly voice came out and said, Mihu zeh shegilas asarai livnei adam. Who is this who has revealed my secrets to human beings? And Yonason ben Uziel gets up and he says, it was me who revealed your secrets to human beings, and it's not for my honor that I did it, and not for the honor of my father's household, but I did it for your honor. Anyway, Yonason ben Uziel wanted to continue revealing the translation of Ksuvim, and a heavenly voice came out and said, stop, because it hasn't it in Ksuvim, it's written when Mashiach would come, and therefore don't reveal the Targum of Ksuvim. In any case, we going on now, we're towards the end of chapter 4 of Perek Daled. We're towards the end of Perek Daled. And one second. Yeah. Now, Barak is chasing after Sisera, and Yoel comes out and says, this is in the Chaf Beis, come, I'll show you the man you're looking for. And he sees Sisera dead and the peg is in his skull. And then Pasuk Chaf Gimel, which needs to be emphasized, Vayachar Elikim Bayoim Hahu, and Hashem subdued on that day Yavin Melech Canaan Lefnei Bnei Yisrael. Yavin Melech Canaan, they won a victory over him on that day. And the Jewish people in Chavdala, the Jewish people got stronger over Yavin Melech Canaan until they totally destroyed the entire power of Yavin Melech Canaan. So this is the story, and Perek Hey is the Shira. Now, we're going to do the Rashi and Mitzudas on the Shira as well, but I would like to deal with that more tomorrow. What I would like to do today is, we started yesterday on the Hasidus, which explains the Shiras Devorah. And before we're going to do the Hasidus, just once again, if we go through the bit of the Medrash which the Hasidus is on. So if you turn your Medrash page, for those who have the Medrash page, and it's from Tana Devei Eliyahu, which we mentioned yesterday, was a special thing written by Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay. Now, just to go from the bottom of page 8, just to go over what the Medrash said, and then we'll see how Hasidus explains it. In the bottom of page 8, we had that the Veda said, Torah gives Hashem pleasure down here, up above, and therefore my heart goes for the Chaykei Yisrael, the teachers, the leaders of the Jewish people who dedicate themselves to teach, because the Veda believe the answer to all the problems is by teaching Torah. And then she said, it speaks about the Reichvei Asoines Tzechoires. Literally, it's people who ride on white donkeys. But we said that Tzechoires means Nekiyos, clean, that people who are clean from theft. If a person is a top teacher, but in his financial life, he's not straight, these are not the teachers that are going to save the Jewish people. We need teachers who on one hand teach Torah, and they are clean, they don't steal, all their earnings are 100% legal. And then the next thing is that we also must have Yoshvin al Medin. We need those teachers who judge. The Veda was very into judgment, that we need to have people who judge. If there's a dispute between two people, one person shouldn't abuse the other just because they're physically stronger, financially stronger. We have to help the victims. And the Veda was very, so we have the Veda's into teaching Torah. The Veda is into everybody being personally clean from any illegal earnings against Torah, to make sure that din is done. If somebody is abused, victimized in any way, you have to look after them. And midin is the idea of din. Then it also mentions here, this is the top of page 9. This is the Sanhedrin, that the whole world is based on the Sanhedrin, and they don't speak sicha b'teila. They were talking about a Sanhedrin who are fully involved, it's page 9, fully involved in learning, and they never speak idle talk. And we quote a pasuk from Shiras Devorah, Shoftim Perek Hey pasuk Hey, Shimu Melachim Hazinu Reiznim. And we said, Shimu Melachim, the Talmidei Chachamim are called kings. As it says, Bi Melachim Yimleichu, the kings consult with Hashem. They are called the Reiznim because their whole discussion, Reiznim is from the word Roz, which is secrets. They discuss the secrets of Torah. And then we specifically speak about in this medrash that it's these Talmidei Chachamim who study the halachas of mechatzitzim. They deal with the halachas of chatzitza. Now, a chatzitza is not to have an interruption. A chatzitza, literally, when you wash your hands for bread or netilas yadayim in the morning, you make sure that there's no dirt or nothing under your nails. You have to have nothing between your hand and the water. Going to mikveh, you have to make sure that your entire body is directly connected to the water. That's why it's so careful. You've table a keli, you got to make sure that there are nothing on it. It's got to be fully clean. So there's the laws of chatzitza, and then the laws of Shabbos, the laws of Moyed, the laws of Chagiga and Me'ilah and Chatzotzim. And then she goes on about Mash'abim, which is those who fetch. Okay, so and then the end of the Medrash, and we're soon going to see how Hasidus explains all this. The end of the Medrash is, the very end of the Medrash on page 9 is, it says, Tzitkas Pierozoin. What did we say? It says, Bein Mishabim, there they learn the righteousness of Hashem. And then we said, and this pasuk it may be worth seeing, because a lot of the Hasidus is based on this one pasuk. This one pasuk is, again, Yud Aleph, Perek Hey Pasuk Yud Aleph, where we say Sham Yisanu Tzidkas Hashem. There they teach the righteousness of Hashem. Tzidkas Pierozoin be Yisrael, the Pierozoin in the Jewish people. Now, what does Pierozoin mean? It's quite an interesting word, Pierozoin. What would be, now what is the shayresh of the word Pierozoin? Which means, what does it mean? Again, a walled city is Mukafim Chayma. The opposite. If you have in Megillas Esther, Haprozim are open cities. Okay, so one meaning of the word prozim is open cities. And if you look in Mitzudas David says what Aliza just said, that they went back to the unwalled cities. Earlier, they were all afraid to live in unwalled cities. So that's one way of translating that word, that it's referring to unwalled cities. We have the famous Chabad Nigun on the words, Prozois Teishev Yerushalayim, that Yerushalayim will be secure to be without a wall. There won't be a need for any walls for security. Okay, what other, if you take the letters, so Pei Reish Zayin is Prozoi, an unwalled city, or if we switch around the letters and we have Pei Zayin Reish, Pazar Mefuzar, which is to scatter, which is the idea of the Jewish people being scattered, which we mention over here. There's a medrash that he says over here, and that's how this medrash translates. Tzidkas Pierozoin be Yisrael, Chesed Godel Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shepizer es Yisrael lebeinu akum. Hashem did a great kindness that he scattered the Jewish people amongst the nations. And what is the great kindness that the Jewish people are scattered? What's so good about it? So interesting that it's brought that if the Jewish people are persecuted in one place, there's Jews in the other place that can help them. We had when Soviet Jews were in trouble, so people in the free countries would help send money for secret yeshivas to help Soviet Jews to packages, and generally and also when there was persecution in one place and there's physical persecution, and then we also have spiritual persecution. We have today many places which Jews are very assimilated. I mean, even in Australia, you have Melbourne is a strong Yiddish community, maybe Sydney, Perth, whatever. Then there's a lot of other cities where Yiddishkeit is very weak. But because the Jews in Melbourne support Yiddishkeit all over Australia and all over the Far East, and that helps. You have here Yosef Chaim Cantor is here from Bangkok now, and he raises money here, and the Yidden in Australia help that the whole Far East, in other words, so the Yidden in the places which are stronger help all the scattered Jewish people. We mentioned about the Devorah, we mentioned in that the Devorah took special interest in isolated Jews. She was into building shuls in far places, making sure there are chazonim, there are people who can teach Torah, teaching adults, teaching children. So the Devorah was very into sending shluchim to far out places. I heard that when the Rebbe was in Paris, and somebody asked the Rebbe what his ambitions are, and he said that his ambition is that wherever there will be 2 Jewish people, there should be a Chabad Shliach. A Shliach. A Shliach, you have 2 Jews, you'd be able to impact them. I know that I was involved for many years, probably I'm less now since COVID. Now my son lives there, but I was involved in Tasmania for many years. There was a time that there was a lot of missionary activity in Tasmania, and somebody wrote then to somebody who was the leaders of the official leaders of the Jewish community, and I know he sent a letter which Rabbi Y Gordon showed me that about this missionary activity in Tasmania. He says it's not that serious because there's so few Jews in Tasmania. How much difference does it make? But it'll be embarrassing. I look at the contrast between that and a letter from the Rebbe. When somebody asked the Rebbe, Yossel Gutnick asked the Rebbe about a mikveh in Tasmania, if it's worth investing in it, and the Rebbe answered, Lepela hasha'ela. I'm surprised that you're asking such a question. Vada yishtamshu by. For certain it'll be used. The Rebbe's concern is that you have to make sure there's proper supervision, that the mikveh should always be kosher, that the toiveling should always be kosher. But the Rebbe had no doubt, he had faith in the Jews in Tasmania that they'll be motivated to use the mikveh. This other leader says, come on, no big deal, a couple of Jews, who cares? In other words, the Rebbe cared and believed in every individual. Somebody, I know that there was a shliach who once wrote to the Rebbe that he made this big thing and only one person showed up. Actually, I think the story was that he may have sent the person home because there was nobody else there. And the Rebbe was very upset. He sent the person home. One person showed up. Moshe Rabbeinu only had one Moshe Rabbeinu had one mother, and this one mother had a son, Moshe Rabbeinu. Don't underestimate what this one person can achieve. Don't underestimate the importance of every individual. And Devorah puts tremendous emphasis on the Pierozoin, on the scattered Jewish people. Okay, now, what I would like to do on this, there's the mimer we started yesterday, but I realized that it's a harder mimer than I thought. And I wanted to first give you some general background of it before we do inside. Now, the mimer actually is based on the pasuk that we just said, Tzidkas Shom Yisanut Tzidkas Hashem Tzidkas Pierozoin. The mimer is based on this concept of Tzidkas Pierozoin, that Hashem did a tzedakah that scattered the Jewish people. Okay, and he brings over here an interesting quote from, actually the copy you have only has for the later part of the mimer, but in the earlier part of the mimer, he quotes from Zohar, that it says in Shiras Devorah, it says the words Mikoil Mechatzitzim. Now Rashi and Metzudas translate Mechatzitzim, that there were those who were shooting arrows, and now since the Veda came, everything is peace, and you're able to walk without any problems. The Medrash that we learn says Mechatzitzim is that people study the laws of Chatzitza. Now, the Zohar he quotes over here from Zohar, Mikoil Mechatzitzim do Kollel Yaakov. The Mechatzitzim refers to the voice of Yaakov, that Yidden are learning Torah with their voice, and specifically the young children are studying Torah. Then he quotes an amazing medrash from a Yalkut. The Yalkut tells a story that there was a great philosopher. I must admit, I personally haven't heard of him until I learned this mimer, but the mimer here says that the greatest non-Jewish philosophers were Bilam ben Ba'ir. Bilam I've heard of, and then he brings an Anvimos Hagardi, who was a Greek philosopher. I'm not personally familiar with him, but I see him in this mimer and these midrashim. Okay, anvimos Hagardi, all the nations gathered, and they asked, we would like to defeat the Jewish people, but as a Greek, the Greek policy was, rather than defeat the Jews through persecution, we want to defeat them through assimilation. Is it achievable? If anybody, is it achievable? This is what the question is. Is it achievable to defeat the Jewish people through, I'm just going to read from the mimer, you don't have this copy. Could we win a spiritual victory over the Jewish people? We want to assimilate them. The Jews should stop have Jewish values. They should accept the secular values of Australian society or Greek society or whatever it is. He says here, just like Milchemes Yavan, who wanted Lashkicham Torah Secha. The Yavan people were not against studying Torah as a topic. You study university, you study philosophy, you study math, science, and you could study Talmudic studies, halachic studies, Hasidic studies. As long as it's a philosophical study, as long as it's purely academic, no problem. They wanted only to get rid of the Elikus. And the question is this achievable? To get rid of the godly part of Torah. So the Anvimos Hagardi basically tells them, the Anvimos Hagardi gives an answer, and he says, go check their shuls in the Beis Medrash. If you will find people, tinoikos mitzafsefim b'kolim, if you will find children chirping away, you will never overpower the Jewish people. If the little kids are chirping, they're, I don't know what the word is, but they're learning the rote, learning what it says in the Chumash and the Mishnayos. You're never going to win. Because the fact that the Jewish people study Torah b'taharosa, it's not the study of Torah. Study of Torah, they can study Torah and we can assimilate them, no problem. But if they study Torah b'taharosa, if they study the pure Torah, that will break through all obstacles. And that's why the Rebbe brings here that the real solution against all the problems of the Jewish people are that we have to emphasize the education of children in the most, not the highest academic, but the highest level of Kedusha V'Tara, of Yiras Shamayim. That they should know Kedushas Ha'oisiyos. They should know that every letter, you open a Chumash, you open a Siddur, every letter, an Aleph, a Beis, an Aleph is holy, a Beis is holy. The Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh. The shape of the letter is holy. The way you pronounce the letter is holy. And that's why the emphasis is if they learn in a Beis HaKnesses or a Beis HaMedrash. What's the difference where they learn? So it says, if a person says Ein li ela Torah and doesn't do tefillah, he doesn't have anything. So the learning with children is only going to stop assimilation if they learn with Yiras Shamayim. If the children know Kedushas Ha'osiyos. We have to learn Torah in a way that we know that every letter is holy. And then it will strengthen the Pnimius Hayadus. And then their hearts will be connected to Hashem. And the anvimos says, actually, on the copy that I sent, that I gave you, it doesn't have the whole piece, but it does have, if you look on the top of page 68, it doesn't have the whole piece of anvimos Hagardi, but it does have, and look at the very top of page Lamed Dalet, correction. It's right after I gave you the copies have page 9, and then at the top of page 10, there's no number on it, but it has a gimel, it starts Hine Kemei Kain Halimudim Tinoikis Shel Beis Rabim. The studying with these children has to be B'yiras Shamayim Dafka. You have to study with children. The top of page Lamed Dalet, or it's the second last page. Second last page. So the limudim tinoikis shel beis rabim tzarich liyas b'yiras shamayim dafka. The fact that the kid is excellent in Gemara and Chassidus and is academically smart, that means nothing. That's not the Greeks. That doesn't challenge the Greeks. The Greeks are okay with academics. The Greeks are very academic. The issue is the Yiras Shamayim. Sheyedu kedushas ha'osiyos. If they educate children, that the children know that an aleph and a beis is holy, va'oz mischazek u'mishtarei shetzlam hanekuda pnimius. Then the pnimius gets rooted by them. The nekudas hayadus, the libam yehinemon im Hashem b'toirosei, and their heart will be connected to Hashem and His Torah. Okay, I didn't copy the beginning of the mimer, but the Kitzer has the abridged version of at least the second. I copied the mimer from Gimel, but I think if we understand the previous part of the mimer, this anvimos who quoted Shiras Devorah, that it's the mechatzitzim, the chirping of the Jewish children. He says over here, Milchemes Hayavonis Hiruchnius. The Greeks, which anvimos Hagardi was one of the big Greeks, philosophically, he wasn't a king, he was a philosopher. It was a spiritual war. They wanted to uproot the godliness. And that's to go them against it. You don't know it's Hashem's Torah. You don't know it's Hashem's mitzvahs. And that was also Haman, who wanted to kill every Jew, but it says that Haman only wanted to kill Es HaYehudim. If a Jew would accept the Persian gods, Haman had no issue. Just accept the Persian religion, being like all of us. Haman's issue was, as he tells Achashverosh, Yeshnoi Am Echad, there's this nation that v'doseim shonis mikolam, they got different laws than everybody else. They don't eat with us. They have different festivals, different this. Everything they do different to all of us. One of the complaints that the Gemara brings that Haman says is that if a fly falls into his wine, he'll throw it out, and if the king touches the wine, he'll throw out, a fly falls in the wine, he'll take out the fly and drink the wine. The king touches the wine, they'll throw out the wine. In other words, that the Jews, they separate themselves from all the nations. So Haman also wanted to uproot the Yiddishkeit. And the Elikus and Torah set in every single person. And how do they want to destroy it? How did anvimos want to destroy the Jewish people? This anvimos was in a group of philosophers who they believed not in persecuting Jewish people, but getting Jewish people to assimilate. Anvimos tells him, it all depends on the children. If you can't uproot the education, which is why the communists their main issue was to stop Jewish education, to get the children on side, and to know him. If the children study Torah with Kedusha, not like those who separate the Kedusha from the Yosef Shabbat Torah. If the Jewish children are studying Torah with Kedusha, you cannot destroy the Jewish people. If somebody teaches Torah with the Kedusha, and all the trop, It is the tunes of Torah, the letters of Torah, the vowels, to read the Torah with the Kedusha, to realize the holiness of every single thing. Okay, going on now. So what is the answer according to this? V'zehu Devorah says, Mikoyol mechatzitzim bein mash'abim. That is the solution to all problems of assimilation. That it says in Tana Devei Eliyahu, again, the problem in the days of Devorah was the Jews had assimilated, and that's why they were having all these problems. Devorah says we have to work on education, especially education of children. It says in Tana Devei Eliyahu that Kol Mechatzitzim is Koil Ha'oiskim B'Torah She'oimrim Al Tomei Tomei V'Al Tor Tor. And here is a very important concept which the Mimer pushes very deeply. That it's really important when you study Torah not to distort the Torah. There are certain things that the Torah says you should do this, you should not do this, and the mitzvahs should be kept as Hashem says. A person says, come on, the mitzvahs, the rituals, and if I get the mitzvah 70%, 80%, come on, big deal. Do the details really matter? If I say Netilas Yadayim, I got to wash my hand up to my wrist. And if I don't get the hand up to the wrist, if I get it 90% there, it's not good enough. Come on, what difference does it make? So the idea is that we have to know that there's Tomei and Tor. What Torah says is pure, what Torah says is impure. And then he mentions the halachas of Shabbos, Chagiga, and Me'ilah. And here the Mimer goes on with a few points that we learn from this Tana Devei Eliyahu. The first part over here, he says that in Shabbos we have, concerning carrying on Shabbos, we have Daled Rishuyas, there's Rishus Harabim, Rishus Hayochid, I'm sure everybody knows, but on Shabbos you're not allowed to carry from a private domain to a public domain, from a public domain to a private domain, and there's, okay. So generally, the idea of Daled Rishuyas l'Shabbos, what is the idea? A private domain. So yes, physically, my house, which has walls, is a private domain, and some big street is a public domain. However, in Hasidus, the idea of a public domain is Tura de Pruda, the mountains of separation. A private domain is that everybody's connected to one thing. We're all connected to Hashem. A public domain is that everybody going in a different direction. It actually mentions in Chumash, when we have the 70 Jews who came to Mitzrayim, they are called Shivim Nefesh, 70 soul, Nefesh, Lashon Yod, singular. When Esav's family, you have Nafshois basic, the souls, there were only 6, and they're called Nafshois, and explains why, Rashi explains why. Because by Esav, each one of them is going in a different direction. This one has this belief, this one has this belief. By Jews, there are 70 of them, or whatever number you have, and they're all going in one direction. And that's why they are called Nefesh. Okay, so now, the goal is to make everything Yichud Gomer, that everything becomes Echad. And that's why about Shabbos, the difference, the idea of Kedusha of Shabbos. The Kedusha of Shabbos, we have the ability to extend Shabbos. Candle lighting, I don't know what time candle lighting this week was, 8:27, or I don't know, whatever it may have been, something around there. But theoretically, you could light candles earlier. You can light candles an hour and 15 minutes earlier than sunset, Zmaniyos, whatever it calculates, and you can increase your Shabbos. You can extend Shabbos later. Shabbos is over at 9:30, or I don't know what time it is, and you can extend it. You can go till 11:30, till 12:30. So theoretically, it's possible to extend Shabbos before or after, and after. Shabbos is the source of all blessing. And you can add Mechayil al HaKodesh, and it says that somebody who Misha Torach Be'erev Shabbos Yoichal b'Shabbos, somebody who works on Erev Shabbos has what to eat on Shabbos. And the meaning of this is that if a person works on Erev Shabbos, somebody's cooking on Friday, a whole week they're preparing for Shabbos. When you prepare for Shabbos, it means that your Thursday and Friday and Wednesday, when you were busy cooking for Shabbos, or you were busy preparing on Shabbos, on Wednesday you went shopping and you said, I'm buying this for Shabbos. You cleaned your house and you said, I'm cleaning the house for Shabbos. So all these mundane activities of your whole week, which you did for purpose of Shabbos, become holy. So the word mechatzitzim, the Mimer says, is mechisa, to purify the spark and to bring it into the Shus Hayachid. because throughout your week, everything that you do for the purpose of Shabbos, and it's something that should be done for the purpose of Shabbos. You should cook for Shabbos, you should clean for Shabbos, you should buy nice things for Shabbos, you should invite guests for Shabbos. So all these wonderful things you did, you have taken your week and giving it the Kedusha of Shabbos. Then we have the dinim of Chagiga, which is Chagiga is something connected to a festival, and Me'ilo, which is that you're not allowed to have benefit from the Beis Hamikdash, that you have to make a division between, I'm reading here inside, we must divide between holy and unholy. You got to be very careful. We want to increase holiness, but you have to increase holiness according to the rules of Torah. If you take something of the Beis Hamikdash, something holy, and you misuse it, then it's Me'ila, it's terrible sin. There's a special carbon, it could be a chi of Misa. It's a terrible thing, Me'ila. The ein chayil misari b'kodesh v'loy kodesh b'chayil. You got to be very careful not to mix holy and unholy. So on one hand, can you in the middle of the week cook for Shabbos and bring holiness? Yes. Can you go right now shopping today and buy something for Shabbos? Or yeah, absolutely. And you're bringing Kedusha. You could do that. But you got to be very careful that when you do it according to the rules of Torah. It says in one of the Darkei Aveda that Adam Tzarech Lizoher B'zeh Ma'od. You got to be very careful. Yes, you can make your week Shabbosnik, but only if you go by the rules of Torah. Val binoscha al tishoin. Don't rely on your understanding. And that's Bain Mash'abim. The word Bain is from the word Bina, that the Bina, using your own understanding and your own logic, is very dangerous. Because you got to be very careful. You want to increase the sanctity of Shabbos, you have to do it by the rules of the Torah. He says, Ki yesh kama inyanim sheim chayil, and I'm now about 10 lines from the bottom. There's some things that are chayil mamish, they're literally secular, they're literally unholy. And he wants to make them holy, and it's hate bechaemis, it's the opposite of truth. I know I was having recently at one of my shiurim, somebody was debating that things that are scientific and scientifically proven, so they're true, so they're as holy as Torah. But that's not so. Yes, it's scientifically proven, and yes, his worldly things are fine, and it's not necessarily, it's klipas noiga. But to say that it's holy, holy is with Torah, Torah's holy. Maths is very nice, it's all good, but to say it's holy, obviously there's maths in the Torah, which is holy. But something just because it's true doesn't make it holy. So there's people who want to take things that are chayil mamish and they want to make them holy. You got to be very careful that you want to make something holy, do it by the guidance of the Torah. And there's Torah things, there are people who take secular and foreign attitudes and mix them into Torah. You want to decide things on Torah, you have to do it based on Torah. We all have Rabbi Ullman's shiurim on scientific discoveries, but you have to know what does Torah say, and just don't give some logical thing because some professor or whatever said whatever. You have to know what does Torah say, not to bring chayil, so not to bring, he basically is very strong, not to bring Torah into secular, not to bring secular into Torah. You have to know, you have to go by the guidance of Torah. And therefore you have to have a mechitza, you have to have a line of demarcation, what is holy and what is unholy. Yes, you have to bring the unholy and make it holy, but only where the Torah says you can. Take an example, Shabbos. You can light candles an hour and 15 minutes manias before sunset. What if a person is going to say, I'm going to light candles at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Is that a mitzvah or not? Definitely not. If you light any earlier than Plag HaMincha, you haven't messed it up. You haven't done the mitzvah. The Torah tells you the earliest time you're allowed to light candles. If you do it any earlier, the candles have nothing to do with Shabbos. So you got to do it at the right time. So every single thing you have to, yes, we want to take chayil and make it kodesh, but you have to not break the boundaries. He goes on here to say that the seichel and nushi shebetoira, some people will think that the human intellect, if the Torah is all human intellect, so what about my intellect? You know, Beis Shammai say this, and Beis Shammai say, and Beis Hillel says this, so I'm going to have my opinion in Torah. People take a Torah and they have their own opinions and they mix in their own opinions. But you know, it says that there are shivim panim la Torah, the 70 correct interpretations interpretations for everything in Torah, and there's also shivim acher la Torah, 70 incorrect interpretations for everything in Torah. And you have to know, is your interpretation from the shivim ponim la Torah, or is it from the shivim acher la Torah? And as it mentioned in Sichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the way you decide is, are you trying to connect Hashem, or you're trying to bring your own intellect into Torah? If you're trying to bring your own intellect into Torah, you're probably going astray. So basically, he says over here, this is mechatzitzim, that you have to be involved in Torah, and you have to say that Tomei is Tomei and Torah is Torah. You have to have a mechitza, a demarcation between holy and unholy. And then bein mishabim, you have the word bina, that you understand that Torah is Hashem's wisdom. And before you can teach Torah to others, you have to know, teach Hashem's Torah. Don't teach your ideas in Torah. I have certain ideas, and my ideas may not be Torah. If my ideas are not based on Torah, they're not Torah. So before you go and teach Torah to someone, make sure that what you're teaching is the word of Hashem. And those people who then fetch and give the Torah to others, they light up the whole world with the light of Torah. The whole idea of Torah is to teach, but you have to divide Tomei and Tahor. You have to divide Kodesh and Chayil. And I'm now on top of page 68, which is the last page in your copy. And all the ways that people do has to be based on the guidance of Torah. So now he still asks a question. So what is the tzedakah that Hashem did, that he scattered them between the nations? And why does it say tzitkas Pierozoin? If the idea is scatter, it should pay Pierozoin. Why does it say Pierozoin? And the whole end of the mimer goes on the difference between the shayrish of Pei Reish Zayin and Pei Zayin Reish, and why specifically it says Tzitkas Pierozoin, and an amazing lesson that we learn from the fact that it specifically says Tzitkas Pierozoin, which I'm hoping that tomorrow to go through the rest of the Rashi and Mesudus David, as well as the rest of the Chassidus, explaining the message of the Devorah, the Chassidic message of the Devorah. We're going to end it here. I wish everyone Hatzlacha. Bazaku Baruch.
It's great.
You're very welcome.
Very interesting.
Thank you. If you're interested, I have Nach Shiurim every Wednesday, which you're welcome to join.
In the day or in the
At night.
What are your place?
No, on Zoom. You hate Zoom, then don't come. No, you're not invited.
No, but I was learning something else with Zoom. I
No
can
problem.
do it. I can do
If
it.
you don't enjoy it, you
What?
don't.
But what now?
I do every week a different topic.
I would love that. I can only do it for a few weeks because I'm studying French on a Wednesday
Okay, anyway.
night. Are you doing it now in the
I'm
holidays?
doing it today. Today I'm doing it.
Oh, today's Wednesday.
Tonight I'm doing a shir.
So
If
do you just send us the link each
I don't
week?
have your phone number to send.
And let me give you my details.
You send me.
I've got a pen.
Okay, the only thing is I'm gonna have to go to the back. I have to move things over. I'll have to do it in the